What does it take for a parent to finally see their child? 25 centuries ago, in a village called Nalaka, near the city of Rajagaha, there was a Brahmin household where 7 children had been raised and 6 had been given to the order, and the mother had not bowed once. The 7th, the most famous of them, was on the road home to die. His name was Sāriputta, the foremost disciple of the Buddha in wisdom, the teacher's right hand for 45 years. This story is preserved in Buddhaghosa's commentary on the 75th verse of the Dhammapada, the parinibbāna of Sāriputta, with the Cunda Sutta of the connected sayings, and the verses Sāriputta himself composed in the Theragāthā. It is one of the strangest stories in the canon, because the awakening at the center of it does not belong to the dying student. It belongs to the mother. And because she did not understand who her son was, until the highest God she had worshipped all her life walked into her courtyard and bowed. Whose son is he? To understand the bow, you have to understand the door of her house first. He went to the Buddha. The Buddha was at Jaita's grove near Sāriputta. The afternoon light was low between the trees. Sāriputta came in. He paid his respects. He sat down at one side. He said, "Honored sir, I have surveyed my body. The time has come." He named the place he wished to die, not Sāriputta, not Rajagaha, not the grove, Nalaka village in the Brahmin household where he had been born, the room where his mother had given him birth. He said, "I wish to convert my mother before I go." The Buddha did not speak. He looked at the man who had sat at his right hand for 45 years. He looked at him for a long time, and he said, "Sāriputta, do as you see fit." Sāriputta rose. He paid his respects. He turned and he walked out of the grove. The Buddha did not turn his face from the doorway. He watched his right hand go. He set out the next morning. 500 monks rose with him. They put on their outer robes, took up their bowls, and stepped onto the road. His attendant walked closest, a young monk named Cunda Sutta, Cunda the novice, who had been at his side for years and who carried his bowl when he tired. The road from Sāriputta to Nalaka was long. They walked through the heat of the day. They slept on the open ground at night. In the morning they rose again and walked. Sāriputta did not speak much. The monks did not speak at all. The dust of the road was on their robes and on their feet, and the country opened around them as they walked. They walked east, toward the village where he had been born, toward the door of his mother's house. Her name was Rupa Sār. She was an old woman now. Her hair had gone white. Her hands were crooked from the ears. She was a Brahmin, daughter of a Brahmin household, wife of a Brahmin household, mother of a Brahmin household. She had worshipped Mahabrahma all her life. She had set the offerings at the altar in the morning. She had lit the lamps in the evening. She had borne 7 children. The first had been her son Upasena. He had grown up in her house, and one afternoon he had walked out and taken the saffron robe. The second had been her son Cunda, the same. The third, her daughter Kala, the same. The fourth, her daughter Upakala, the same. The fifth, her daughter Supakala, the same. The sixth, her son Ravata, the youngest and the dearest, the same. 6 children. She had given 6 children to the order, and she had not bowed once. The 7th was Sāriputta, the eldest, the brightest, the one the household had named for the gold of his future. He had become the most famous monk in all of India. Her neighbors spoke of him in the lanes. Travelers from Sāriputta carried back stories. The other Brahmins of Nalaka, when they passed her in the village, lowered their eyes. Because the son who had been hers had become the right hand of the teacher, they did not follow. She did not bow. She had not bowed for any of the 6. She did not bow for the 7th. She kept her household. She set the offerings at the altar in the morning. She lit the lamps in the evening. The years passed. She grew old, 6 children. She had given 6 children to the order, and she had not bowed once. He came to the village in the late afternoon, 500 monks behind him, Cunda Sutta at his side. The villagers gathered at the road's edge. They had heard he was coming. They had not seen him in many years. He walked through the village to his mother's house. She was at the door. She did not bow, but she let him in. She prepared the room where she had given birth to him, the same wooden door, the same beam in the ceiling, the same square of floor where the midwife had set the cloth. She made up a mat for him in the middle of the floor. She helped him lie down. His body was thin. His breath was shallow. The skin of his hands was the color of old ash. She tended him. She brought water. She brought a cloth. She wiped his forehead. She did not know what was dying in her house. She thought it was only her son. That night, the courtyard filled with light. She was setting a bowl of water on the threshold when the light came. Not torchlight, not lamplight. A pale, even light that did not flicker, and that came from outside the house. She stepped to the doorway and looked. 4 figures stood in the courtyard. Their crowns brushed the lintel of the gate. The cloth of their robes was the color of dawn. They came forward. They came to the room where her son was lying. They bowed, each of them slowly in turn, and they touched the floor with their foreheads, and they rose, and they went out, and the light went with them. The courtyard was dark again. She turned to her son. She said, "Who were they?" He said quietly, "The 4 great kings." She did not understand. And again the courtyard filled with light. And again she rose to look. The light was brighter than the first. Many figures this time. Their robes the color of high noon, their crowns set with what looked like fragments of broken sun. They came forward. They came to the room. They bowed, and each of them, in turn, and they touched the floor with their foreheads. They rose, they went out. The light went with them. She turned to her son. She said, "Who were they?" He said, "The gods of the 33. She did not understand. And again the courtyard filled with light. And again she rose to look. The light was brighter still. A single figure now. Tall. The crown alone was the height of a man. Around him stood a guard of attendant gods, and they too were taller than the gate. He came forward. He bowed. He touched the floor with his forehead. He rose. He went out. The light went with him. She turned to her son. She said, "Who was he?" He said, "That was Sāriputta, king of the gods of the 33. She stood very still. The count of years she had spent at the altar, 60 years, perhaps 70, was beginning very slowly to turn over inside her chest. Saka had bowed to her son. And again the courtyard filled with light. But this light was different. She came to the doorway. She looked. A single figure stood in the courtyard. The crown was higher than the roof of the house. The robe was the color of the highest sky, and it had no edge. It went up into the air above the courtyard until she could not see where it ended. She knew who he was. She had set offerings at his altar every morning for 70 years. She had lit the lamps in his name. She had taught her children his rights. He came forward. He came to the room where her son was lying. He bowed. He touched the floor with his forehead. He rose. He went out. The light went with him. She stood at the doorway with no breath in her chest. Whose son is he? She turned very slowly from the doorway. She walked into the room. She knelt beside the mat where her son was lying. She set her forehead on the floor. She did not rise for a long time. When she rose, she sat at his side. She said, "My son, teach me." He looked at her. The body was thin. The breath was shallow. But the eyes were the eyes she had known when he was a boy, before the saffron, before the road. He said, "Mother, sit." And he gave her, slowly, the same teaching he had given to thousands. The canon does not record the words. It says only that he gave her the graduated discourse, the teaching that begins where the listener is and goes, step by step, into what the listener has not yet seen. He spoke for a long time. The lamp burned low. The night moved on outside. She listened. She heard it for the first time. Something that had been closed in her opened. A door in a place she had thought sealed. She entered the stream. She rose after a long time, and she paid her respects to her son. And she sat beside him in the quiet of the room, and she did not speak again. The lamp went out. The room held the dark. Outside, the first thin line of gray appeared at the edge of the eastern sky. Sāriputta drew a breath. He drew another. He drew a third. And then there was no breath. His mother was beside him. Cunda Sutta was at the foot of the mat. The 500 monks were seated in the courtyard, quiet. The dawn came in through the doorway. The light fell on the mat, on the body, on the folded hands. His mother sat without moving. She did not weep. She did not call out. The body that had been her son was finished. The body that had been her teacher for one night was finished. The room was quiet. She set her hand once on the cloth at his shoulder. Then she rose and she went to the doorway, and she watched the dawn come up over the village where he had been born. The cremation was held in the village. The Brahmins of Nalaka came, the villagers came, the monks came. His mother stood at the front and she did not weep. When it was finished, Cunda Sutta took up the bowl that had been Sāriputta's. He took up the cloth in which the bones had been gathered. He took up the robe. He walked back to Sāvatthi alone. The 500 monks had stayed in the village to keep the rites. He came to Jata's grove in the late afternoon. The Buddha was sitting under a tree. Cunda came forward. He paid his respects. He laid the bowl and the bones and the robe at the teacher's feet. He could not speak. The Buddha reached down. He lifted the cloth in which the bones were gathered. He held them in his hand. He looked at his student a long time, and he said, "This is what remains of the right hand, a bowl, a cloth of bone."